This week on Behind the Dream, we're thrilled to welcome Sharon, founder of RVT Seminars. Sharon is passionate about transforming the veterinary field through in-person workshops, seminars, coaching, and consulting. She works closely with clinic owners and managers to improve patient care, support the mental health of veterinary professionals, and rebuild the trust between pet owners and their care teams. With her deep expertise and dedication, Sharon is helping the veterinary industry navigate its challenges while unlocking its incredible potential. Welcome, Sharon. It's so great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, likewise. I feel like your industry is quite unique. And like I was mentioning before we started recording, I know quite a lot of people in this field. And I feel like your business is such like a unique take on it that, first of all, one that I haven't heard of, but one that I think is needed. So I'm excited to kind of talk to you more about your business and kind of dive into also what brought you to start this. So let's get some background information on your business. You know, like I shared the introduction, but really I want to hear from you. What is it that you do exactly? And like what sparked you to start this business in the first place?
I started this business, actually tried starting this business in 2018 with the intention of going into clinics, performing training, seminars, workshops. Great idea, and then went nowhere for a little bit. But about a year ago, I decided to move forward and actually launch. From then, it actually expanded into consulting and coaching services, which is mostly what I'm doing right now. But there is such a need for training in the field right now. We don't have a lot of support in that way. When people start in the veterinary field, a lot of people can, at least in the United States, most people come in and can learn without having any training background at all. You don't have to have any schooling or anything like that to be a veterinary assistant or receptionist, which a lot of people don't know who are not in the field. You can just walk in and say, hey, I want to be in the field, and let's go. The problem is most clinics don't have a training program in place. They help them out a little bit and then good luck. Being in the field for almost 25 years now, I've seen a lot of things. I've seen things that work and I see things that don't. And the main thing that's missing is training, support, and good communication. My goal with the business was to help be an external source to support that for clinics that don't have time, or I should say don't feel they have time to create or implement a training program. I noticed that patient care was suffering. Clients are upset a lot of the time, and people in the veterinary field are leaving. The people who have been in a long time and are really skilled don't want to deal with it anymore. The hours are awful. The pay is not great. It's very stressful for a number of reasons. So what you have left behind is a lot of people who are maybe experienced, but not the best role models. They're angry a lot of the times, and they transfer that onto the new people coming in. So there really is a lot to unpack, and I could talk about just that for hours. But the main thing that I've noticed is that lack of trust within our field and between our field and the owners of the pets, which is really causing this disconnect. So if we had that ability to communicate better with each other and the pet owners, we could reduce the stress on both parts and also provide better pet care. Mm-hmm. That is my main goal and why I kind of got into that whole field.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So are you yourself, like you yourself are trained as in this field as well, right?
Yes, I'm a credentialed veterinary technician, which depending on what state you live in, the requirements are different, which is also confusing to a lot of people not in the field. But in the state of California where I live, you have to be credentialed as a veterinary technician to perform certain tasks, higher level tasks, we'll call them. With that, it includes the requirement to pass a national examination. California mostly requires schooling, but some people can get what they call grandfathered in or do an alternate route, where if you have enough experience documented, you could sit for the exam without going to school. But there are plenty of veterinary technician and veterinary technology programs. So there are both 2 and 4 year programs that you could, and I strongly recommend should do, wanting to get into the field, because it really gives you that background. Whereas if you're just trained on the job, your level of training is completely dependent on the people you happen to be thrown in with.
Right. So would you say that you yourself were kind of thrown into, the working field in a way that wasn't very successful, and that's what really pushed you to be like, we gotta fix this?
Actually, no.
Oh,
Surprisingly, I've just seen it so much. I did go alternate route because back in the beginning, in 2001, when I started in the field, I did walk, off the street. I had my cat in there one day, like, hey, are you guys hiring? Because I've been wanting to get into the field anyway. Since before I was born, I wanted to be a veterinarian, which didn't get there, but I'm happy with where I am and what I'm doing now. With that, I was so fortunate because that first clinic where I worked, they had a full training program in place. You were with a trainer. They walked you through step by step. They were with you every step of the way, and it was great. Second place I worked, I ended up working as a receptionist. The previous place I was a kennel attendant, but I learned how to restrain animals for other people performing procedures and some other things. The second clinic as a receptionist, the second I would clock out, I would stay on after, and everybody there was teaching me. What I loved about that, I felt like everyone's little sister, and everyone was, let me support you in every way. And they didn't just teach me or just show me how to do things. They explained to me the why, the how, why we're doing it, why I'm doing it this way. You should also watch these two people do it because they have a different way that works really well for them, and maybe that's better for you. Here's what not to do and why not to do it, and really diving in. And ever since that clinic, the only time I see that is when I'm doing it for other people,
mm,
which is really upsetting to me because I feel that everybody, first of all, I feel everyone should go to school, so they shouldn't have to learn it that way. But since we're not there yet as a field, I really believe that it is so helpful. When you have all that background information, you're more prepared for when things go wrong. Because if you only know how to do one thing and you don't understand any of the logic or reasoning behind it, if something goes wrong, you don't understand why, you don't know how to fix it, you get stressed out and depressed because you think you're a failure because, oh, this has worked for me before and it's not working now and I don't know why. And you can do two things with that. You can get down on yourself and just be miserable, or you can choose the path of, let me go find someone who can help me fix this.
right.
But a lot of veterinary clinics are in a very negative space right now, very unhealthy work environments. They don't have people that they trust because they don't want people thinking they're stupid. And that hurts me so much. There's a lot of talk about psychological safety outside of veterinary medicine as well, but we're hearing a lot of that now. Such an important thing to have.
Mm-hmm.
Places don't have it right now. And I'm hoping to build that by providing people the knowledge and confidence in themselves to either know where to get the information themselves or to feel comfortable going to somebody else to ask, or to me if they don't have anyone in their space that they feel comfortable.
Right. And I think the gap that you're filling, but not only that, just like the conversation that we're having, it's so, I want to say, unique because you're talking about a field where you have, said person, like the person in the field doing it, but they're doing a treatment to someone that doesn't speak, aka the pet, but then talking to the pet owner. So it's almost like what you're touching on is so, like, it kind of makes total sense. It's like the lack of communication when the training is not there would be huge because the person or the thing, the animal getting the treatment can't speak. So now you're talking to the owner who's making assumptions of like what's going on with the pet and like all these things. So communication is actually, I would think, the number one thing you need to be good at to be able to be successful in this field.
Absolutely. And so many of us are not. And it makes it very difficult, again, to communicate with each other, right? About what we're even doing with the pet and then communicating that back to the owner. One of the things I teach when I am doing communication workshops is that when you are speaking with members of your team, 100%, please use medical jargon. I love it. It's great. Very technical, sounds good, a lot of information in a very short period of time. When you're talking to clients, I say, when you go through those doors over there, you speak in English or whatever that primary language is of the owner, if you can speak it, in a way that they can understand. Because if you go and talk to them say, we're going to get 3-view thoracic rads and get a chem CBC. If they've never heard that before, which most of them haven't, blank stare.
No idea what you said.
Exactly the point, right? So please give me your credit card and, we'll see you in a couple of hours.
Right.
The odds of that working are not as good as if you took those extra seconds or even an extra 2 minutes of saying those things in English. We're going to take 3 x-rays of your baby's chest, one from here and one from each side. And we're going to run some blood work to make sure the organs are functioning properly, check the red and white blood cells. That way we have a better picture of what's going on. How much longer did that take? Maybe an extra 15 seconds, if that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I understood what you said.
Right. And what happens with that is when you speak with people in a way that they understand, that in itself starts to build trust, which is what you want. Because at the end of the day, our goal in the veterinary field is to do what's best for the pet. What I'm working on getting across is, in order to do that, we need to have the clients trust us. To do that, we need to know how to communicate with them.
For sure. I will say, when you actually explained what those terms meant, I automatically felt calmer, even though you're not actually doing anything on any of my pets right now. But it felt like, okay, we're on the same level and we're speaking to each other in a way that we both understand. And I think that is something that any business owner can take out there. It's like, is your communication, the way that you're talking about your services, your business, whatever it is it actually understandable? Because a lot of the times in a lot of different fields, and not just this one, there's a lot of like medical jargon or like jargon, even like in marketing, like SEO. Now it's become a more common term, but before, people were like, no idea what that means. And it stands for search engine optimization. But if you're out there, let's just say on your social media, talking about SEO, saying SEO over and over again, and people don't know what that stands for, they're not going to listen. They're not going to understand. And in the scenario that you just explained, if you're on top of that being like, give me money to do this for you, no, thank you. Like, I don't even understand what I'm getting out of it. Like, why is this beneficial?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so interesting. What would you say is one misconception people often have about the type of business that you are running? Because like I said, I feel like your services are quite unique, because you're coaching, you're helping, you're training. What would you say is a misconception that people have about what you do, and how do you approach it differently?
I would say not so much a misconception rather than a resistance.
Mm.
A lot of people say they don't have time to do this with their team. They don't have the resources. They can't spare a few minutes. One of the many issues, our field is very understaffed currently. It is hard to get people in the field. A lot of what we're seeing, there's a lot of Facebook groups online for people in the veterinary field. I see so many posts. Somebody says one negative thing, oh, leave the clinic. We keep doing that. There's not going to be anyone left. How about try to fix it a little bit? And I understand sometimes there are those exceptions where, yes, absolutely, report the clinic and leave because things are very, very badly being done, legally speaking, and safety for the pets and people involved. What I noticed in one of the clinics, I actually managed one veterinary clinic. What was really interesting to me, I was trying very hard to push us to get a training program in place, both for reception and for the technicians. I tried with the technicians and assistants first, so the technical staff actually hands-on with the animals. I got so much resistance. We don't have time for that. I can't do that here. One day, since we're understaffed, I worked in the back as well as a technician because I had that experience also. I was in the back. I was helping place an IV catheter in the leg just to have some access for a patient that was going to be sedated. And as I'm doing it, the person restraining for me, I was verbalizing everything I was doing, just walking her through. She was asking questions, I was answering them, and it was great. My technician supervisor walks by as this is happening, didn't say anything. She stopped and noticed and kept walking. Later in the office, she comes up to me. Oh, that's what you were talking about. I said, yeah, you don't have to create a whole big training program and do a full implementation or anything like that. Would that be nice and ideal? Absolutely. But it's just taking those moments on the floor to just talk to your team. Just walk them through what you're doing, because that's how they're going to learn. That's how I learned. I learned so much. I restrained animals for 1.5 years before ever performing any type of actual procedure. We don't do that these days. No training program in place. That's an easy thing. You can just do it. Yeah, but what if something goes wrong, right?
Right.
All of these things. Full circle. When I spoke with her, my tech manager, about that, and it brightened her world. And then still, what did we do? Nothing. I continued to do that every time I was working with my team. I had one day of the week where I was the only manager type person on. I was working in the back with my team, and they did amazing. They were on it and they did fantastic. The tech supervisor multiple times would make comments about these same people during the week. I can't find them. They're not keeping up. They're not at the level I think they should be. And I told her, I don't know what to tell you other than on Sundays, they're amazing and they're exactly where I need them to be. And they are making strides. That showed me so clearly the importance of good leadership and trust with your teams. Because if you communicate and you allow them to feel safe communicating with you and they're honest with you, you can help each other so much. And all that does is it elevates everybody.
For sure. And I think you're touching on something so important. Like, leadership is so valuable because it changes everything. Like, if you're not a good leader, it says a lot, like your business doesn't thrive the same way. Things like, I bet you everyone that was coming in on Sunday knowing that you were the manager there, they're like, yay, I'm so excited. No one actually wants to work on the weekend, but having good leadership makes it a little bit better, And I do like how you were talking about meeting them where they are. It's less about this big, rigorous training and more about just making sure that they understand this stuff. And if that means that while we're doing something with a patient, that's the moment that we can take to do so, then so be it, right? And I really like that, of like meeting them where they are, because a lot of the times when we're outside of your field, when we're just thinking in business in general, sometimes we're like, okay, we have to do this really big thing and like blah, blah, blah. And if we don't go big, then like no one's going to show up. And it's like, well, yeah, how about we just meet them where they are? Like, do they actually have the time to take off a day and go to this workshop? No, but maybe they have 15 minutes in their car ride to listen to your podcast, right? So it's like meeting them where they are, which I think is such a great message out of this conversation too. Now, I do want to dive a little bit into your journey of starting your business, because you did mention at the beginning that you had kind of started doing this and you had a little bit of success, and then there seems to have been a pause at some point before you picked it up again. So can you tell us a little bit about like starting your business and maybe like what that challenge was that made you stop for a bit before you found your passion for it?
I actually had the idea to start it and never did. At the beginning, this was in 2018, I had this great idea. I bought a projector that I could use for my presentations. I bought the website, set up the email address. I did all of the prep work for it. I had a list of all the seminars I was going to be giving. And that was it. I am a phenomenal planner, and I am equally, if not better, at procrastinating. Really good at those things. I decided, it was October of 2024, so just over a year ago, I was hearing all of these complaints in the field about clients. So veterinary professionals complaining about situations with clients, hearing some people start talking about communication. That was when I decided I need to just create a workshop about how to go over estimates or treatment plans with clients, focusing on the communication aspect. People that get into the veterinary field, they love animals. A lot of them think, like most people outside of the field think, oh, we just get to play with puppies and kittens all day. It's great. Well, not usually. Sometimes we do get to do that. But they get into the field because they think they're going to be working mostly with animals. A lot of them are not necessarily people persons. When you put them into this situation, they get into the field, they realize, oh no, wait, the animals have people attached to them. And then on the other side, oh no, my coworkers are people too. I'm surrounded by people. So we're thrown into this situation that's completely different from what we imagined. And then we're not given the tools on how to manage that. Throw in talking about money when you are broke because people in the field don't make enough money. Talking about money is very uncomfortable for most people. And then having to deliver estimates or treatment plans that you yourself know you can't afford. It's really hard for a lot of people. When I put all of those things together, I told myself, I'm creating a workshop. And I sat and I did it that night. Client communication with a focus on reviewing estimates and treatment plans with clients, where I start with going over different communication styles, how you should communicate, as I mentioned earlier, with your team versus clients and things like that. And then how to go over the estimates. Also, as I made an example earlier, layman's terms, not medical jargon. And in those, going over all those details, followed up by some role play. That was my decision to launch. When I built that, it's like, oh, I already have all the framework in place. Now I just need to launch. Then I started building out my other seminars, and I went to my first conference in November to exhibit my business. And that was when I had decision makers coming to me. So I was able to finally actually pitch to people who were willing to listen.
I think that's such a good point. Okay, so a few things that you said there that I think I want to just kind of circle back on.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you really had this idea and you're like, okay, plan. And then it just kind of sat there in limbo, because I feel like that tends to happen to a lot of us where not, even if we're not great planners, we kind of have this idea and we love it and we're passionate about it. But then it's like something happens or something doesn't happen and we just let it sit there. And I like that it's like, maybe you should listen to that and take action on it, because years later, it's gonna come back for a reason. But there's also like timing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the timing wasn't right when you had the initial idea, but the passion was always there and this was always meant what you were going to do. So I love that. And I love that you're mentioning that you went to conferences and then you had like decision makers coming to you, because what you're doing is quite unique, which means that to some extent, if it's something that's not already out in the field or talked a lot about, you kind of have to do a bit of education of like, why is this necessary before someone goes, oh, we should invest in that. And that sometimes takes like traction, which is a pain in the butt, right? Because you're like, oh, now I'm like working harder because I have to tell people why this is important. Right. So can you talk to me a little bit about like, what was it like talking to the decision makers versus, you know, the experience that you shared with us earlier about being a manager at a clinic and trying to sell this concept before you even had this business, but, you know, like actually doing proper training? What was it like kind of shifting to decision makers that are like, and at a conference where they're sort of expecting to be like, I have money to spend. Are you the person I need to spend it on?
Absolutely. It was honestly terrifying, the idea of doing it. But, you know, they say if it's scary, you should do it, because that means that you're growing and getting somewhere with it. I was super nervous the first day. It was a 2-day conference, but toward the end of the first day, I started getting a little bit more comfortable. I didn't know if anyone would stop at my booth. I didn't know what kind of questions to expect. As people started asking questions and I started answering toward the end of it, at end of the first day and into the second day, as people were asking, can you do this? Do you offer this? I would say, schedule a free discovery call with me. If I can't help you, or if I don't think I can help you, I will find you somebody that can help you. With being in the field about 25 years now, I've made a lot of connections. So even if it's something that I don't feel comfortable doing, I can usually find someone, or I know someone who knows someone. Mm-hmm. And when I started saying that, I felt better about myself, because I don't feel I need to be a one-stop shop. I can't do all the things as much as in my head I'd like to think I can. I can't do everything. I can do a lot. But being honest about that and still helping in a different way, even if you can't help in the way that they need at the time, I think was really important for me to realize. And I love that I verbalized it. And as soon as I started saying them, I was like, yeah, I like that. That's my thing right now. If I can't help you, I can find you someone that can.
I love that. I love that because you're connecting people. And I will say that, from my own personal experience and those of clients, connecting people actually builds your network so much quicker because it builds a level of trust that you can't really build any other way. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's truly that. It's like if I come to you or you come to me and I have a question that you can't answer and you go, I don't know, but you know what? You should message Anna. Let me send you their information because they can be able to answer this question. No problem, blah, blah, blah. And it's like you make that connection and that person is always going to remember you. They're going to go, I know Sharon is amazing. She might know someone. She's great. So then when they need your services and you're actually the person that can fulfill this, you're top of their list because you've already built this trust of, I'm going to do everything I can to help you be successful. And if I can't do that, I'm going to find someone that can. And that is a form of currency that you can't really get any other way.
It's a very good point.
Yeah. I do want to know a little bit more about, because you kind of like started your business or planned your business and then actually started it like later on. What would you say you would do differently if you were starting it from scratch today?
I would just do it instead of waiting. I, as most of us do these days, have imposter syndrome pretty bad. And for me, I think I just really like planning. It makes me happy. I love spreadsheets. I will sit and make spreadsheets for everything. And that in itself is satisfying for me. If I wasn't in a job that I was making comfortable money in at the time, I may have pushed a little bit harder. I would maybe get some professional business coaching sooner, stop making excuses for why I'm not doing the thing, and just do it. Because at the end of the day, if there's a thing you want to do it. If it doesn't work out, figure out why and keep pushing forward, or figure out why and decide, yeah, this is not for me. I really don't want to do this.
Yeah. That's actually such a good point because I would say even for myself, when I started my business, I got a coach and a mentor because I was like, I need the accountability and the support to get this going because it's been on my mind for a while, haven't done anything with it, and it's having someone in your corner being like, well, like, what's the worst case scenario? Like, just put it out there. Especially, I think what you mentioned is something that a lot of entrepreneurs don't talk about. And it's like having that safety net of having some sort of income coming in that's not from the business that you're building. And there's two things that happen with that. Either it creates a safety net where you're like, well, I don't really need to focus on this passion over here because, I'm getting money. Or it actually creates the best platform for you to explore your passion in a level that has security and you can actually test almost like, I call it failure, like quote unquote failure, because I don't think you actually fail. I think you learn a lot from it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, it makes it a little bit easier to experiment and be like, I'm going to say this because I don't care what people say because, if it doesn't land or if it doesn't produce a sale, that's okay because I still have money coming in this way. So you kind of have like both sides of the coin when it comes to running or starting your business while having another source of income.
Absolutely. And I really feel that that is the perfect time because a lot of people, like in the veterinary clinics with the training programs, right? It's all or nothing. We either have to go big or do nothing. There are usually things you can do, even if you have a full-time job. And for my veterinary people out there, I know sometimes you've got 3 jobs at once just to make ends meet. But if you want to do your own thing, have a separate business, you can start small. You can start 30 minutes a week because even say 5 minutes a day or 5 minutes every other day, work on your business. It doesn't sound like a lot, but every little thing that you do is a step forward.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Sharon, for sharing so much information about your business and your journey. Now, you did share with me some coaching or some questions that you wanted to get some advice on and some coaching on. So I want to at least be able to do one of those on our call today, because if you have a question, someone else out there has this question. So you shared 3 with me. I want to talk to you about knowing if I'm going too wide with my offers was one of the questions. So without knowing too much about the difference in your offers, I think you actually brought up something very important at the beginning of this conversation or throughout this conversation of understanding the problem people had. It's really hard to go big with your offers, like too wide with them, if you understand the problem people are wanting solved. And sometimes that problem is like step 10 in like a 20-step situation to actually get that problem solved. But if you talk to them about that, if you make it so you're like, if everyone's talking about step 10 and that's what they're struggling with, and that's what you focus your conversation on, selling them into like the bigger program is a lot easier. So do you want to talk to me a little bit about, give me a little bit of background information here on like why you feel your offers might be a little bit too wide?
With RVT Seminars as a business, as I mentioned, I was planning on just doing it as in-person training workshops and seminars. I have since, before I even had any clients, decided that I could expand it to other potential things that could help in the field. Coaching, consulting, tutoring, all these different things. I have, I think, about 8 things I offer on my website as services that I could potentially do. So it's not that I'm offering one thing that has a lot of stuff in it, but I just am offering a lot of things, all of which I feel are very important for the field, all of which you can probably get somewhere if you look hard enough. So I like to be, again, not exactly like a one-stop shop, but I have multiple things that I could help out with. And of course, I would limit it. If I have too many clients, I wouldn't take on more than I felt I could handle.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting for me, I thought I would only be doing the seminars and workshops, but my first 2 clients that I have right now are a coaching client and a consultation client, which I'm creating a full training program for them, and I will help them implement it for a new clinic opening, so it's easier. So we're not open yet, but again, coaching and consultation, which initially was not even on my radar.
Right.
I don't know if, so again, it's not one thing that I'm offering that has too many things, but it's,
right.
Should I focus or maybe offer all these things, but only focus on pushing out, hey, I do this. And if they come to the website, then they're like, oh, hey, she does these things too.
Okay, great question. So I like the background information because you're truly meeting people where they are, you know, like you have all these things that you can offer. So first of all, I would get super clear on what the difference is between each offer. Like, why would someone get the consulting versus the coaching, right? Because sometimes people use that word interchangeably, coaching and consulting. But in your case, they kind of encompass different things. So I would get really clear on what's the difference between them. And I would even go into the conversation about it, whether this is on your website or your social media or when you're talking to people, of like, if you are experiencing XYZ or wanting to solve ABC, this is for you. And from here, we can take you, once we've completed this, to this other service, because it sounds like all your services could actually be sort of like an ABC situation where, like, if I start here at service 1, I could then maybe hire you ongoing as a consultant. Right? So then you can even say that and kind of like build out the ladder. But I think the number one thing is get very clear on what the difference is between them, because there is one, you know, there is one, of what problem it solves and who is the person buying it. You know, you mentioned something interesting about the conferences, that it's like the decision makers were coming to you. Those decision makers might be buying kind of what you're talking about, of if you're opening a new clinic, you want this offer. Versus if you already have an existing clinic, you are probably maybe not the owner of the clinic, but maybe you're the managing or the supervising technician, right? So you're also kind of talking to maybe different people that would be making the decision of hiring you. So that automatically creates difference between what you are selling. So I wouldn't say that your offers are going too wide based on the explanation that you shared with me. I think it's more, you're kind of targeting different needs and problems and giving different solutions based on one, who they are, meaning like what their title is and why they would be hiring you, and what problem it is that they're looking to solve. So I don't think you're going too wide at all. The other thing that I wrote down here is like, I wrote pasta and then I wrote potato. And the reason for that is because if you think of pasta, like what falls under that? Ravioli, gnocchi, spaghetti, but it's all pasta, right? So it's like you help veterinary clinics do better. That's your pasta. And then within that, you have like the different types, right? And they're all a little bit different. They all have a different flavor to it. Like even a potato, like you have French fries, you have mashed potato, you have baked potato, right? Like it's kind of that concept. Sometimes food allows us to like visualize it a little bit clearer, that it's not as complicated as we think it is. It's like we have the overarching umbrella of, if you're a veterinary clinic looking for help to get everyone on the same page and everyone, working well, and your location making more profit ultimately, right? That is your umbrella. And then within that, you have the different things that could help them based on, again, their title and what kind of decisions they're able to make and what kind of solution they're looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And of course, now I want potatoes and pasta.
Okay. How could you not? How could you not?
No, I love the visual of that. Actually, it makes a lot of sense when you worded it that way. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I know. I feel like sometimes when we're talking business, it's a little bit, it feels almost like foggy. Where like we kind of see, we kind of can't see. But then as soon as you put it in a different area, like food or something like that, you're like, oh, that is just so much easier. Like because I've been living with food for my entire life, right? Yeah. Okay. Do you have any follow-up questions to that?
That was really clear and helpful for me. You hear so much about niching down and just doing one specific thing. And it's exactly what I was thinking. I'm doing one specific thing, but there's a lot of sub things.
Yeah.
So it's always good to have that kind of outside perspective looking in, especially somebody who has that experience with coaching and looking at all the different business models that people have and what's working and what's not. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And you've basically validated that the different services that you have is what you need to have, because the two clients that you have right now are doing two different things and into two different services. So if you said, I have 4 clients and they're all buying this one thing, then I would be like, okay, maybe the other ones aren't necessary. And that's something that you mention to them once they're done service A that you offer, and then it's like, hey, because you're my client, I also offer these VIP things or these other ways that we can continue ongoing. But because your current clients are in different areas, that validates that you do need to have different services available based on what they're looking for help with. Yeah. Okay. Amazing, Sharon. Thank you so much for being on and sharing about your industry and your business. Really appreciate it. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you.
You as well. Thank you so much, Anna. I appreciate it.
Thank you.